Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at Mercury making a zippy couple of sextiles to Venus and Saturn over the weekend as the Venus-Saturn conjunction is taking place. This little sextile from Mercury will be coming through. So I'm going to give you 5 things to watch for. Given that we've spent a lot of time this week talking about Venus-Saturn, I think this is a good one to throw in. Unfortunately, I also had to come up with a new episode because Ari had to cancel last minute for the final part of our 3-part series on the nodes of the moon and ancient versus modern astrology. We'll be getting back to doing that in the next week or two. He had some stuff. He got a newborn that just came along, so they're busy in newborn phase right now, and he was a little overwhelmed and said, I need to reschedule. No problem. So this is also content coming up at the very last minute without my usual planning. I do apologize for that, but I hope that you'll enjoy this. It is a good aspect to take a look at, one that's perfecting over the weekend. So that's what we'll do today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel to grow when you do that, because a lot of people watch but don't subscribe. It's free to do so. It really does help us grow our work and community. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. We're seeing if we can get to 80,000 subscribers on the channel by the spring equinox in a few months from now. So help us get there. We'd love your support. On that note, I will turn my screen over, my second screen over to the real-time clock. Alrighty, here we go. Now, what we are looking at here is here we sit on Thursday, January 16th. And what I'd like to point out is that Mercury is already just a couple of degrees in Capricorn at the 12th degree off from the sextile to Venus and Saturn at the 14th and 15th degrees. Let's draw this out a few days. We go forwards within a degree tomorrow on Friday. Then Saturday, January 18th, you'll see that Venus is coming through the sextile to Venus. And then by Sunday, we'll have passed through the sextile to both Venus and Saturn. So we have this aspect forming on the 18th and, right here, Mercury sextiling Saturn and Venus on the 18th into the 19th. So we'll call this 18th into 19th. That's this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, that you'll really be noticing this. Of course, Saturday, the Venus-Saturn conjunction comes through. You'll be feeling that. Tomorrow into Saturday, I'm doing horoscopes for Venus-Saturn tomorrow. So today I just want to talk about 5 things that you can watch for given Mercury in the earthy sign of Capricorn, making a sextile to Venus and Saturn in the very watery sign of Pisces. Now, these are both feminine signs, and the whole signs are a couple whole signs apart, and that gives them a harmonious aspect through the sextile. Sextiles are, of course, of the nature of Venus. And so we have this harmonizing effect taking place between between Mercury and Venus, and between Mercury and Saturn. So one of the things that comes up with an archetypal combination like this is the ability to very clearly articulate desires. Sometimes with Venus and Saturn conjoining, I could see this where, we might be articulating desires rooted in a clear sense of what's not working, of what's reaching a limit, or of what we're experiencing as frustrating or disappointing. And so there comes this need to clearly articulate what we want. This isn't what I want, but this is what I want. In Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn has that kind of realism that allows us to maybe very clearly articulate what we do and do not desire or want, or what is or is not working. So I like this. Now, the second thing that I would watch for would be realistic talk about emotional longings. Now, Venus-Saturn coming together, we've already said, has a kind of gravitas. It can be a little melancholic, but it certainly has the capacity, Venus-Saturn does, to bring a more serious mood or more weighty, consequential themes into love, relationships, friendships, social dimensions of our life, or even artistic dimensions of our life. There's a gravitas. Well, when we have Mercury in the very earthy, realistic Saturnian sign of Capricorn contacting these planets harmoniously, we may find that we are able to talk about difficult things or talk about our emotions in ways that are more grounded than we might think that they should be, given how powerfully we might be feeling about things. The emotions can be running really strong when Venus and Saturn get together. And yet we may find that we are ready to have some really realistic, grounded conversations about the practical side of how to deal with what we're feeling. We may also find that there is some mature and brave way in which we are ready to simply speak what we feel, speak what we long for, speak what we hope for. So I like, not only do I see Mercury sextiling Venus and Saturn as articulating what we want or don't want, but also the practicality and groundedness to talk about difficult things in ways that remain grounded despite intense feelings or emotions. I like the ability to look at the practical side. What can I do about what I'm feeling, or what can I do about what's arising that has this really maybe heavy and more emotional power to it? The Venus Saturn comes about, and it's a little Shakespearean. So you may find that your ability to rise to the occasion and talk about what's happening with a kind of adult perspective is a great asset during this little transit over the weekend. The other thing that I like about this is what I just broadly called edgy sensual realism. There's a way in which the combination of Mercury and Capricorn and Venus and Saturn in Pisces may allow us to honor or acknowledge the somewhat grittier or darker sides of what we desire or long for. It's as though we have the ability with this transit to give ourselves permission to love some of the rougher edges of people, of ourselves, and of things that we desire or are attracted to. Yes, that's complicated, but I still like it. Yes, that's a little dark, but there's some way in which I'm attracted to it. The thing about Mercury and Capricorn that's so wonderful is the there's no beating around the bush with Mercury and Capricorn. It's like, just give me straight talk. Tell me what it is. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me why you're doing it. What's your motivation? And you combine that with some of the high romantic sentiments of Venus and Saturn and Pisces, and you get this kind of dark, sensual, realistic quality. I think a little bit about that movie that came out years ago. It was based on the book 50 Shades of Grey. This has a little bit of that. What is it called? S&M. It has a little bit of that. There's a kind of gritty, sensual, dark quality here that for some people is not, for some of us, it may be like, yeah, that's not my thing. That darker side of things is not something that we have access to or interest in. But for other people, a transit like this can be very relieving in the sense that you're finding people around you who are willing to go into kind of like grittier, edgier. It's like watching a movie that's a little darker, or humor that's a little more provocative, a little bit like, would you just step across a line? That. So I think about this transit as one that for some people may be experienced as the enjoyment of a slightly darker or edgier energy. Anyhow, going on, number 4 would be incremental steps toward our desires. So when we think about what we want, what we long for, what we hope for, and then you think of that as pretty Venusian, Venus coming into contact with Saturn. Okay, so there's the realism that might clip your wings or make you feel like, yeah, you don't get to have what you want. It's impossible. But Mercury in Capricorn says, where there's a will, there's a way. Let's map out an incremental plan to gradually move around an obstacle or climb up that mountain. And so I wonder what dreams, wishes, longings, hopes, fantasies Mercury in Capricorn is willing to facilitate as long as we take a long, slow, gradual, incremental approach. Can you climb this long mountain? Is there a way up? There might be. So incremental steps toward our desires. Finally, I think about artistic skill refined. One of the great things about Mercury and Venus combinations, especially the sextiles, is that they have a fantastic way of getting together to learn things like singing or painting or poetry, songwriting. When the two planets combine, they were said in ancient astrology to bring about pleasant sounds, pleasant speech, beautiful singing voices. So Mercury and Venus may also be about the appeal of music or poetry, or the innuendo or the suggestion. There's an art or a kind of a sensibility and an aesthetic that come together. It's like, I've said this one on the channel before, different aspects. The people who find intelligence to be a turn on, very Mercury Venus. Mercury Venus can also be about the refinement or development of any kind of design or craft that has an artistic side to it. So artistic skill, refined love of intelligence, intelligence and beauty coming together harmoniously, design and aesthetic, organization, strategy, mental approach, and things like beauty and sensuality combining nicely over the weekend. That, my friends, gently, I think it takes the edge off, is what I'm trying to say, of the Venus-Saturn conjunction. So it's a nice one to consider coming in over the weekend. This was a last minute thing that I threw together because, like I said, Ari had to cancel last minute. Sucks. I can't wait for him to be back next week. And I hope that this was something that, at the very least, gave you some content, as impromptu as this talk was, that lets you have a little bit deeper access to the transits of the weekend. So again, that transit with Mercury sextiling Saturn and Venus comes in on the 19th early in the morning. So it's really 18th into the 19th. Enjoy it, and we will see you again tomorrow for horoscopes. Bye, everyone.